All right. Hello, everyone. We are here for another episode of Conversations with Rob. Please like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. And also, obviously, if you know the show, you're probably either listening online to the 10 radio stations we are on throughout the country. So let's talk first about, we have a special guest. And I'm very happy to have her on. She's a local New Englander and a local Rhode Islander from
Yep.
Barrington, Rhode Island. Yvonne Weiss. So Yvonne, thanks so much for coming on the program. I appreciate it.
Rob's great to be here.
All right, so let's start talking about the business that you have. And I want to get into this first. So knitting, crocheting, my grandmother used to do this throughout her life. And, you get quilts, blankets.
Yep.
But I want to get into that first. But firstly, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about yourself. So tell the viewers a little bit about you, where you're from, and how you got into the business.
Okay, so I'm originally from Holland, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and we immigrated to Florida. So, I know,
Wow.
the temperature that you're having right now when I was 9. So then I grew up in Florida, but in Holland, I learned to knit in school. And so I've always had fiber arts in my life. I think there's a lot of comfort and just you get endorphin release when you knit. So it's always been a huge part of my life. So I've done weaving, quilting, knitting, crochet, needlepoint, cross stitch. It's always been a big part of my life.
So I didn't know you were from Holland, but I want to get into that since you brought it up. How was it coming from Holland to Florida? I mean, you obviously have the two big changes of weather. There's a language barrier in some parts. How was that?
It actually was pretty difficult. It was northern Florida, so it's very different from Holland. It was Tallahassee. And I didn't speak any English when I came here. So, but I mean, you learn fast as a kid. As a 9-year-old, you learn super fast. So, but I always felt very Dutch. We always spoke Dutch at home. So I'm still bilingual. So when I was 18, I went back for 2 years and studied in Holland. But people don't realize that in America, it's such a great place to live. And I have to tell you, we moved to Rhode Island kind of almost by accident. My husband had a job interview here and he came and he called me up and he said, Yvonne, I think you would really like it here. And I don't know if you miss Rhode Island or not, but I love Rhode Island. It's a great state.
Well,
not so much in the winter, but
No, I was just going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, to answer your question back, the things that I miss about Rhode Island is the food. You come down to Florida and, probably traveling all over the country and in the world too. Florida, it's just chain restaurant after chain restaurant. You go up to Rhode Island, we have bakeries. I'm Italian, so, I've been bred on, good Italian food, good cooking. You come down here in Florida and there's really not the same type of food. I mean, it's just fast food and chain restaurants. There's no bakeries. I went to school in South Florida in Boca Raton, and we did have, as a person that, does love Jewish delicacies, that was nice down here because there's a big Jewish population in Boca Raton. So I did enjoy that. And there was some good Italian food because they did have quite a few Italians in that area. But you come up to where I am now in Orlando, and it's just touristy, people can't drive, and the food is terrible. So I do miss some things about Rhode Island. The only thing I don't miss is the weather.
So, Rob, when are you moving back?
I know, right? I'm supposed to be moving back pretty soon, but we won't talk about that on the air. I'll talk about that to you once we get off. But
mom listening? Is your mom listening?
Everybody's listening family-wise, but
okay.
So we'll put it on the down low. Keep it on that down low for now. But let's get back into about you. So you did tell us a little bit about yourself. So as I told you, my grandmother brought me up with, I can't do it, which is a loss for me. But knitting, crocheting. So yeah, I would definitely love to teach one of your classes. I'm actually be up there in March, so maybe I can stop by and check it out. But knitting, quilting, embroidery, and she did a lot of stuff too. And I actually still have some pillowcases where she did some embroidery on. But what got you into all that stuff?
So I have 5 kids, and you spend a lot of years taking care of the kids. And so at the end of that, when they were all getting ready to move out, a friend of mine said, oh, wouldn't it be fun to open up a quilting shop? Because the shop had just closed in Darrington. And my first reaction was, why would I want to do that, in stronger words? But then I thought about it, and it's kind of fun to have something that's yours and to grow it and to, you know, cultivate it. And I have to tell you, people that are into the fiber arts are the nicest people in the world. It's a great community of people,
Right.
you know, so I took the plunge, and here we are 6.5 years later, and it's growing and it's doing great, and we're expanding, and, you know, and I've met the most wonderful people having the shop. That's probably been the biggest plus for me, is the people that I've met.
So Yvonne, you've been doing this all your life then, correct?
Yes, pretty much. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So how long did it take you to kind of master? Because as we went through it, it's not just knitting. There's quilting, embroidery, and crocheting, all that stuff. How long did it take you to master? Is it when you kind of master one, you kind of master all of it?
No. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at most of those things. I don't think I'm a master at any of them, but I have great teachers that I found. I personally don't teach in my shop. I have a 900 square foot classroom that's great for classes. I personally mostly just do interact with customers and do the ordering and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't really teach, but I mean, I'm pretty proficient at all those skills. And I think also part of it, Rob, is being good with color.
Sure.
And, you know, I mean, that's a huge part of quilting, not so much knitting, but being good with putting colors and fabrics together. So I think I'm pretty good with that. I mean, I think you're kind of born with the sense for that. So, I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of part of it. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Right. No, I was just going to ask you this question too. Would you call that textiles?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, you know, I'm big into world affairs. I like to know what's going on in the country. We see a lot of textile shops. I'm only 28, but even when I was younger, you know, I used to see a lot of tailor shops. We don't see as many of those anymore, and there's, you know, very few. Maybe it's just down here, I don't know. But even in Rhode Island, when I go up there, I don't see as many as I used to. We don't see a lot of textile, you know, shops around anymore. We see a lot of textile jobs going overseas.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? And why do you feel that is that, you know, so much of these businesses, shoemakers too, it's another business that you don't see that period anymore, which in, you know, the olden days, you would see all these businesses popping up with like small business owners making these businesses. But why do you think we don't see that anymore? Or why do you feel that is?
Well, I mean, I think on the larger scale, I think manufacturing, the labor costs in the US are so high. So that's why I think those have all gone overseas, which is actually really sad. You know, I would love for that to come back to the US. I don't know how that's going to happen. And I think as far as small businesses, I think small business is really hard. I think it's, you know, I went into it knowing it was hard, and it is hard. I like it. There's definitely a lot of downsides to it. So I think for people who need to make a living off of their business, it's super hard.
Right. No, I understand. Now, have you traveled overseas within the past maybe 5-10 years? Do you see the same?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So do you see the same kind of issues as far as the textile industries in the countries that you've traveled to, where it's, you know, maybe there was a lot at one time when you were there and now it's kind of fading out?
I think actually the whole knitting was really down in Holland for a while when I was over there.
Okay.
No, I do travel a lot. I travel for, I like to have things in my store that are different that you can't find in the US. And so being from Europe, it's easy for me. I go to Germany once a year to the trade show there, and I find stuff that nobody else has. You know, but I think it's a universal problem. I don't think it's just the US. I think, you know, it's just universal. Like small business is really difficult.
Right. Now we hear about that, you know, like I said, in the U.S., but also we hear about the Brexit with the manufacturing over there too. But we'll go into back into the business, which we want to get to. We want to talk about rather. So you do teach classes over there. You talked a little bit about that you do have that big classroom. Can you go through the classes that you teach?
Rob, I have the best teachers. So I'll introduce you to Joan. So she is an 80, she'll hate it because I'm mentioning her age, but she's, you know, she's the most amazing person. I've known her for a really long time. She teaches knitting in my shop, and she's about 4'10". She's incredibly colorful. You'll love her when you talk to her. And she has been knitting all her life. And so she's fantastic. She's probably taught, you know, a quarter of the percentage of people in Rhode Island to knit. And then I have a quilt teacher who also is 83. She doesn't care if I mention her age. And just the knowledge that they have as far as passing that on to other people. Then I have a lot of other teachers. We teach embroidery, we teach weaving, we teach crochet, we teach so many different things. And I think the biggest thing about the shop is that people who come in who have, you know, things going on in their life, it gives them a little respite from, you know, some of the problems that they have going on. I have one woman whose husband's got ALS, and you know, and more things like that. A lot of women who've lost their husbands, you know, people with cancer, you know, and we like being helpful to everybody and being nice to everybody and just giving a little bright moment in their day.
Right. It sounds relaxing too, as you said, to kind of just learn something new and be relaxed on that. Now, let me ask you this. How would you target market somebody like me, a guy or even a girl for that matter, that's around my age? We don't see that a lot. I do actually, I'm a teacher, and I do work with a woman that's, she's in her late 30s, and she does a lot of crocheting. She even knits like little hats for babies and stuff like that. If that's, I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but
Yep.
but
No,
anyway,
that's fine.
but yeah, but she does do that. But how would you target market somebody like me, or would you even do that? Is it not my demographic? Apparently, like, I just feel, maybe this is the wrong way to say it, but I feel like my demographic doesn't kind of see that relaxation. We're always on the phone. We're always running out the door. You're working 2 or 3 jobs. Or you're just trying to get ahead. How would you target market people like that?
Well, we're very active on social media. You know, I have somebody do that for me because it's not my area of expertise. And part of like having a business is learning to delegate things that you're not necessarily good at, that, you know, so she's younger than me. She's very active on Instagram. And I think there's a lot of, you know, like even in colleges, there's knitting clubs, and, you know, quilting is a little bit more, you need a sewing machine or like whatever. So it's a little more difficult. But knitting, you can do wherever you are. You can do it at an airport. You can do it, you know, while you're watching TV. So I think just seeing people knitting, and there's a lot of younger people knitting, and there's a huge modern quilt movement going on too. So I think it's, you know, I don't think it's what people used to think it was, just, you know, grandmothers and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Right. No, I appreciate the clarification on that.
Teach you how to knit, Rob. I'm happy to teach you how to knit when you come up in March.
I'm totally up for learning all kinds of different new things. I'm not a closed-minded person in any aspect. So you do have kids classes too.
Yep.
Could you talk about those? What is the kind of age range, and how does that work? How do you get like a kid that's rambunctious and all over the place to sit still and say, hey, we're going to teach you how to do this. It's going to look pretty at the end.
Well, I think you have to target your things that you're doing with them to that age group. So obviously for younger kids, you make the classes shorter, and for, you know, older kids who are more focused, you can do them a little bit longer, but you make it interesting for them. I mean, kids, like, it's amazing because kids have no boundaries, so they're not afraid of anything. So I've had the coolest kids come in and do these amazing things that adults are afraid to try, because kids aren't afraid to try. They'll do it, you know? So I think it's awesome. And I love it when boys come in and they knit and they needle felt and they do all these other like great things. It's really great.
Now, what is the age range you usually get for the kids in that class?
Well, you know, it depends on what you're teaching, but I think they probably should be like around 7, you know, 7 and up. And then for knitting, you know, maybe a little bit older, unless you're like finger knitting or arm knitting or things like that, you know.
Right.
You have to have a little bit of a concentration span.
Sure. So the kids are pretty much there when they're there. They're ready to, you know, they're not into any funny business. They're ready to work then.
You know, we have really good teachers, so they can work with these kids. They know how to keep them engaged and keep them going.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about the age range? And obviously you teach so many different types of styles with the knitting, the crocheting, embroidery. What are the age range for the people in those type of classes do you usually get? Is it more men than women? Is it mixed?
You
Uh,
know,
how-
it's more women than men. I mean, I hate to say that. I would love to have more men come in. We're Rhode Island. It's,
yeah,
different than New York City. So
yeah.
it's a mix. I mean, there's definitely, like I said, a lot more younger quilters, and there's a lot of young knitters, and
Oh,
they're,
wow, great.
they're doing I mean, knitting is not like it used to be. The yarn is not like it used to be. There's a lot of hand dyed yarns coming. Like I have a lot of my yarns coming from England, from France. I import it myself because
Yeah.
again, like I said, I like having yarns that are different. So there's a lot of younger people knitting, probably more
If
younger people knitting than quilting.
you feel men don't want to do it because they believe in that stereotype about that's a woman kind of thing, and I don't want to even step into it. I don't want to come out of my box.
I mean, I still think there's comfort zones for people, and then
Yeah.
it's just different, you
Right. No,
know.
right. I mean, I personally, I think people need to come out of their boxes more in general and try new things because, even what you said about traveling, when you travel all over the place, you learn a different language. You learn
Right,
how people react to different other cultures, other religions. So, but
right.
that's just my piece. You did write a quote, and I'm going to read this off verbatim. Find joy and comfort in your handiwork and strength and friendship in those around you. What did you make that quote up yourself, and what does that quote mean to you?
Well, I did make it up. It's from the article in Quilt Sampler when we were in Quilt Sampler, and
Right.
what it means to me is, again, it's these people who are going through some difficult things in their life. And if through knitting or quilting, or we can just take their mind off of some of their troubles I mean, we've all gone through things in our lives. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
And, what helps you get through is friendship and, a love of whatever you're doing. I mean, and friendship mostly. And I have great friends, and they come to the shop and it helps you get through like difficult periods in your life.
Right. No, I totally agree with that 100%. Lastly, before we end the interview, where can people find more about Knit One Quilt Too, and also where are you located in Barrington?
Okay, so we're at Tenanoka Avenue. The easiest way, and you'll relate to this,
Sure.
for me to tell you how to find us is that we're behind the Dunkin' Donuts on County
Okay.
Road. So if
Right.
you
Right.
cut through the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, we're right behind it, but it's
Right there.
Tenanoka Avenue. We have an active Facebook page and an active Instagram page. We have a great website. Yeah, so they can find us, information on classes and what we carry. And we're actually going to go and go online also with sales. So, because I draw people from the Cape, I draw people from Boston, I draw people from Connecticut. And people, when they visit their family in Rhode Island, they come to the store every time they come visit because I just have things that are different.
Excellent.
And like I said, we try so hard to be friendly to everybody and, help people out with if they have issues with their knitting or quilting or whatever. So
Now, I know I said that was the last question, but one more. Uh,
sure.
do you guys do like, quilts or embroidery regardless of other things too, that people can buy in the store?
We do have some quilts. And the other thing, Rob, before you go, like I'd like to bring up,
Yeah.
we knit and quilt for teenage foster kids.
Oh,
I'm
that's
a
great.
pediatrician by background.
Oh,
And to me, the teenagers always get left out. So once a month we meet at the shop in the new classroom now, and we knit and quilt. We have fabric donated and yarn donated because I always felt we've done that right from the moment we opened the store. It's really important to give back. And most of those kids, have not had easy lives and they have nothing. So we have these incredible volunteers who, have knit. There's one woman, she's amazing. She's knit 100 hats last year for the teenagers.
wow.
So, I mean, that's like, yeah, I want to make sure to bring that up. That's a huge
Yeah.
part of the store. Like, that's really important to me.
Wow.
So
100
come join
hats.
us. It's the first Wednesday of every month from 10 to 12. We'd
Wow.
love to
That's
have more
really
people
incredible.
come.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm happy you brought that up. Thank you so much for that. And what was the website that people can find you on Instagram, Facebook,
Oh, it's
and also,
www.knit1quilt2too.com.
okay. And that's on Instagram too and Facebook. They
Yep.
can find it in the search
Yep.
bar. Okay,
Yep.
great.
And
All
we're
right,
also
Yvonne.
starting a YouTube videos,
Oh,
with
nice.
techniques to help people.
Now, is it going to be like a self-teach video or self-help
Just
video, I guess?
explaining, like videos explaining how to do things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So we'll look
Yeah.
forward to that. Yvonne, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it.
It was so nice meeting you, Rob.
All right, great. And I'm happy